Hello and welcome to the Atelier training for the Colorado Department of Transportation 2020 Seatbelt Survey. I'm Todd Toole and I am one of the project coordinators. This is the first of 6 training videos to prepare you to successfully survey sites throughout Colorado for seatbelt use. The first 2 videos are a sort of boot camp to introduce you to the project and strategies and processes for conducting your surveys. The remaining 4 videos will address the use of technology. Now, this is new to all of us on the project. Specifically, we'll look at the use of iPads to digitally collect and submit survey data, timesheets, mileage, and expenses. It's best that you watch these videos in the order that they are labeled, 1 through 6. Here we take a quick look at the survey timeline. Because of the unique circumstances of 2020, our project timeline is different than normal, but in general, we are 2 months behind schedule on all phases. We're here in late May, where you will be receiving online training materials and the delivery of iPads and assignments of sites to you. In the time leading up to the mid-June local in-person training, we ask that you watch these videos and prepare yourself. Prepare a list of questions that you might have for your trainers and watch each of the videos. Make sure you familiarize yourself with the iPad as much as you can in that time leading up to the in-person training. We are establishing individual small group training in the middle of June, which we've already reached out to you about. And those groups will be 3 to 5, 6 people at most, spread across the state. Then in late June, after you've had your individualized training, then we will start doing your scheduling and survey preparation. So again, you'll go out and practice. You will create your schedules and submit those to us. And then we begin the surveys just after the July 4th weekend. So you'll notice that this year we're starting on a Monday through Sunday for our pre-mobilization time period rather than starting Sunday through Saturday, because we don't want to be disrupted or have any type of anomalies in our data because of the July 4th weekend. And then we go back to our normal Sunday through Saturday schedule for the statewide, which will begin July 26th and run for 2 weeks through August 8th. Today's video, we're going to go over just a few things, including the overview of the survey, the elements of training for a survey, preparing yourself to survey the sites, how to safely and accurately conduct site surveys, and concluding your surveys by submitting your data. As a basic overview for surveys, we survey 770 sites over 31 counties in Colorado. The data is collected first for pre-mobilization on 225 sites. This creates a baseline for us of seatbelt use before the Click It or Ticket campaign, which is happening in mid-July this year. And then we do the full 770 sites during what we call the statewide phase, a 2-week period. And then we have something to compare the before and after of the campaign. Once all of the sites are submitted to me, then we process the data and produce a report that Atelier then submits to the Department of Transportation. Our objective is to successfully collect our client's data, CDOT, by developing and ensuring that you, the observer's ability to perform seatbelt surveys, that you can do this accurately and on time. So the training for the survey, our delivery method has multiple elements. You will receive the online and in-person training for all of the materials necessary to complete each survey site. The training materials will include documentation and this series of video tutorials. You will also receive an in-person training with one of the supervisors and possibly a coordinator as well. You will receive field practice, feedback during that time, and then you will receive a certification testing of your skills so that we can ensure to CDOT that we are doing everything we can to ensure that the data is as accurate as possible. Each of you will be assigned a field supervisor mentor for ongoing training and improvement of skills leading up to and during the surveys. If you have any questions, that's your first person to address, and we would get you answers to your questions as soon as possible. So the outcome of this training is that we hope to ensure a positive and successful results of the survey, that you would be certified through knowledge and skills testing during the in-person training. Also, to ensure the quality of the data, each of you and each of the supervisors and field coordinators as well will receive 2 unannounced quality control observations. These will be hopefully done, one of them during the pre-mobilization phase and a second one during statewide. Following your successful training and certification, you will be expected to review the assignments that you receive via email, make any changes with me that are necessary, to review your location maps through a website called BatchGeo that will help you group and assign each of your sites so you can create a schedule and submit it. And you will be doing that online this year rather than sending in a piece of paper. Then you will submit it onto a spreadsheet calendar, and then we'd be able to share it with your supervisor so we know where you are and what you're planning to do, and then we can coordinate that everything for each day is submitted, so we can confirm that that what you've done is actually received here on the back end. Site assignments, how are they determined? So the basic thing is typically the geography. For planning and logistics, we typically want the observer to be as close as possible. You will most likely receive an entire county. This is, for planning purposes, makes it much easier. Though some counties have been divided between 2 people. Also, experience is important. If somebody has already observed sites over the past year or more, then we want those who are familiar with those sites, to continue to do them. They know where to park, they know any of the issues that they might encounter there, they know in advance if they may have to move to a new location. And the site volume, we would like to put those who have proven themselves able on those heavy volume sites to be assigned to those. When you're conducting a survey, the main thing is to find a safe and workable point to view the traffic. Please do not park in any high weeds or grassy areas, as this could be a fire hazard. Second, please do not do anything to interfere with traffic. Be a safe distance from the nearest lane of traffic. And also don't put yourself in a place that makes you very noticeable, where people will slow down and wonder what you're doing. We want to do everything to make sure that we don't interfere with the speed of traffic or the movement of traffic. Be aware of where you're standing if you're outside of the vehicle. Make sure you're not blocking sidewalk or bike lanes or anything like that. And make sure you're looking around at signage to see if you're allowed to park where you plan to park. If you remain inside of your vehicle, make sure that you have an unobstructed view of the lanes that you're going to be surveying. And finally, be alert to sun glare in determining the direction for best viewing. Typically, we view the lanes coming away, as egress away from the city center, the nearest town. but this may not always give you the best view. If the sun, because of the time of the day, is reflecting off of the glass of the oncoming traffic, you may have to reverse yourself and collect from the other direction in order to be more accurate. In addition to finding a safe place to be, you also need to conduct yourself in a safe and professional manner. So please wear your reflective vest and name tag at all times. And we will provide you with a memo of authorization from CDOT to allow you to be conducting these surveys. So have that on your person or in your vehicle at all times, just in case law enforcement comes by to see what you're doing. Another thing is, don't be buried in the iPad. And I know even on paper that this can happen where you're so focused on the traffic or the iPad or the paper that you have. But be aware of your surroundings, because there could be pedestrians, there could be traffic, there or cyclists coming through there, and we want you to remain safe. Something that you can do is look for something to stand behind that would protect you, a guardrail, a light post, something like that, that could give you some extra protection. Safety is first, last, and always our biggest concern. If for any reason that you don't feel safe in a specific location, you can find a better spot down the road. And if you don't think this is possible, or if it causes some kind of issue, then just call Richard or myself to determine if you need to use an alternative site, which we do have a pool of anything with a site ID over 770. These are our additional sites, and we can assign you a new location if for some reason that you cannot survey the site as it's originally assigned. Now we're going to talk about the very, very basics of what a survey is. We are collecting information about the use of seat belts, and that can be categorized in 3 ways. A person can be either belted, unbelted, or unobservable. Now, unobservable is one thing that we're very specific about. This is if the windows are tinted and you cannot see the person, or if they're, one example of a blocked window might be those people who have piles of Beanie Babies or something on their front dash, and it obstructs your view of their seatbelt use. What it is not is if they simply drove past too quickly and you couldn't see them. Do not count this as unobservable. That's just a vehicle you don't count at all. In a survey, we are recording the use of seatbelt by driver, and if there is a front passenger present, we want you to count them as well. And then we count these across 5 categories of vehicles: cars, SUVs, light trucks, passenger vans, not commercial vans, and then commercial vehicles. And we'll talk about the breakdown in commercial vehicles because we don't count every category. So if you count all of these up, there are 30 different categories that we're counting in each of our surveys. That would be the driver for all 5, belted, unbelted, and unobservable. There's 15 categories, and then passengers for each of the 5 categories. Again, belted, unbelted, and unobservable. That adds up to 30 different totals that we will be submitting and collecting in each survey. In a separate video, you will receive a step-by-step instruction on how to use the Seatbelt Survey app to record each vehicle that you count. This is just a quick view of what that's going to look like when you get to that video and when you receive your iPad as well. Traditionally, we've used a paper collection method. You see here an example of that done by Richard Motzkus, our other field coordinator. You will need to know how to collect on a survey on paper if for some reason you cannot access the app on your iPad. We hope this doesn't happen at all this year, but we understand that there may be an instance where that does occur, where the app doesn't open or the iPad's unusable at the moment. But once the app is again available, you will be able to enter all of your totals into the software and submit them after the fact. So you'd collect them first on paper and then submit it through the digital application. But this will be covered in a separate video specific to using the iPad. But even with the paper collection, you need to make sure that your sheets are complete. Always enter your pre-survey information before beginning. And here you see we have the county number, which is one that we don't even submit, we don't even collect in the or process in the statistical analysis. But what are important is the county, your site number, your name. We will need to know the number of lanes available and the number of lanes observed. And in your individual in-person training, we'll talk about each of these and make sure that everybody's on the same page because we want consistency in this. You need to collect the weather conditions, the speed of the traffic, details about the site location, like you can list the intersection of two roads or two streets, or you can list by a mile marker if you're on an interstate. You need to mark the date that the survey was done, the day of the week, and your start time and end time for a 40-minute period. We also want to know here in the very top whether this is the pre-MOB survey phase, if it's the first week of statewide or the second week of statewide. You'll also notice up here in the right-hand corner, it says page 1 of 1. In some cases, in a high volume location, you will need to use multiple sheets, and it's best if you keep them in order, so labeling them is very important. And then here you see across each of the categories that we have for vehicle types. Within each vehicle type, we have columns for the driver and passenger. And then we have yes, indicating that they are using their seatbelt, no, that they are not using their seatbelt. And then here at the bottom, we have a tally box for unobservable. You'll notice here as we move forward, I'll zoom in. And you can see in the car example, how we tally is each box, we tally up to 5 before moving to the next. And it's important to keep yourself very organized. You should start at the top here, just as Richard has done in the first box, making your tally marks for that specific recording. And when a box has 5 tallies, then you move down 1 box and continuing until you have 5 in that box again. This allows for an organized and legible sheet, and your final totaling for each column will be much easier. When the survey time is finished, you total each column here at the bottom. First, for the page, and since you could have multiple pages, you will also do for the entire site, adding up the page total for each category of the 30 categories that we're collecting. Even if you have a 0 for a category, for instance, if passengers in cars, you had a 0, you had no markings, no tally marks, I'd still ask that you put a 0 in each of these boxes at the totals at the bottom. And once you have totaled and collected and make sure you feel comfortable with the numbers, you will come to the iPad app, and in a separate video, again, we'll train you on specifically how you would add each of the 30 columns to submit that site that you had to collect on paper. Again, we hope that we do not have to use a paper collection method, but if we do, we want you to be prepared for what you would need to do for steps for submitting that data. Some additional notes that we have received from veteran observers is that you note any site description details and corrections on your summary sheet. Typically, we write these down on the back, and in the digital app, it'll be on the last page of, it'll be called the post survey place, and you'll be able to type in if you've had to move or if there, any specifics about that location. Also, we do not count older vehicles that are not equipped with shoulder harnesses. These we just disregard in our counts. We use consistent counting patterns. So always, you're only counting the single direction of traffic. Always count the same lanes during that survey. Don't be moving around counting if you're on I-25 and you're counting the 5th lane, then the 1st lane. No, determine before you start your survey that I'm going to count lanes 1 and 2, and so you only count in lane 1 and 2. Again, we only count cars in a single direction, and typically it's the egress from the nearest town center. An exception for this would be a county road where you arrive and realize you probably won't reach the minimum vehicle count, which we've established as 12. If that's the case, then we do give you approval in advance to count in both directions in order to try to reach that, that vehicle minimum for your counts. And there's a lot more to conducting a survey, and that's why we want to make sure that we are doing in-person training with you, that we can answer any of your questions, that as you're doing it, we would see your methods and try to give you strategies and tips. So we look forward in mid-June to coming around throughout the state and making sure that we meet each of you and that we prepare you fully. One of the big questions that we have each year is for the commercial vehicles, what are we actually counting? And there are 8 classifications of vehicles. We're going to take a look at it here. When we're recording vehicles, we do not count all truck classifications. Personal light trucks and personal passenger vans are counted in their own categories. So we're not discussing those here. Those are counted in full. But for commercial vehicles, we take a look at this breakdown, you'll see 8 classifications. For this category only, we are only counting Class 1 and Class 2. And we'll take a look at a few examples as we conclude this video. But in our in-person training, you'll receive more detail and examples, and you'll have a chance to practice. Class 1 is a counted vehicle, and we look at it here. It's the smallest category of pickup trucks, typically. The GMC Sonoma, the GMC Canyon, both fall into this category. Here you see a few more, and is typically based upon the weight of the vehicle. Now we're going to move up to a heavier class, the Class 2. Again, Class 2 we are counting in the commercial category. It even includes some cargo vans. When used in a commercial practice. And some of these utility vans, step in and step out vans, like a UPS van, fall into the category of a Class 2. Once we reach the Class 3, you'll see it's a much heavier class, and this starts at 10,000 pounds. Here, as we reach Class 3, these are not counted. And the more you practice, the more you get familiar with these types, the more that you quiz your field supervisors about what is and is not counted, the more comfortable you're going to feel in counting commercial vehicles. And again, think of this as the basic weight, as how we classify these. And here we see a class 4. And at this point, we're going to conclude the video and ask that you continue the bootcamp series with video number 2 in the series that was submitted to you via email. If you have any questions, again, collect any question you have in preparation for the in-person meetings that will be occurring in mid-June. Thank you again for joining, and we look forward to meeting you.